joining the show is the great, probably, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think the most talented male vocalist in country music right now, Lee Brice. How you doing, sir? You doing all right?
Man, I'm doing good. That's a stretch of a compliment. There's some great singers out there, but we love to sing now.
It is even in like even for like what I do. It's like there's some like some people's music just really kind of grab you and just grab a hold of you, and like your voice, your music. I don't know. It touches it. I think it's really good for a whiskey drinker. Is that wrong to say?
No, I think that's right to say because it comes from a whiskey drinker. If I wrote it, it came from a whiskey drinker, and if I found it even from somebody else who wrote it, but I recorded it and put it out on the radio, then still coming from a whiskey drinker. But yeah, I think there's people with strengths. Like somebody might be the best singer on the planet, but maybe they don't communicate a song all that well. You just get lost in their voice, or maybe they don't sing about the right stuff, or maybe there's somebody who don't sing all that great who communicates better than anybody on the planet. Maybe I'm just somewhere in between. I love to sing. We sing all right, but I really do try to communicate. I mean, it's like kind of, opposite of whiskey, but like in church, that's what I learned from my mama. She would get up and sing a solo in church, on Sunday morning, and sometimes I'd hear kind of talk the second verse, and I always wondered. I was like, you're such a good singer? She's like, well, I just felt at the moment that I needed to speak those words so people would actually hear what I'm saying and not what I'm singing. And so I think that kind of feathered off into who I am and kind of how I perform, and maybe that's what you're talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, you do get whiskey in the music, in the lyrics every now and then too. So
yeah, I do.
Yeah, anytime I hear whiskey, I'm like a dog for squirrel.
Yeah.
Whiskey,
have you heard when the whiskey used to burn?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that was a fun song, boy. I tell you what, that was special.
Yeah. Why? So you use the word whiskey quite a bit. Do we see like? I know bourbon's a little bit more difficult to rhyme with, but you see a place for bourbon in a lyric here or there?
Yeah, I could do that. I guess it's like I just grew. The first thing I ever drank other than a Bud Light, really even before that, was Jack Daniels. And so the difference between whiskey and bourbon really is kind of where it's made. In most cases, and so I guess I just called it whiskey because that's just what it was. It's a Tennessee whiskey. And so, but yeah, some of my favorite things are some bourbon, Pappy's and things that you can't hardly get your hands on. But so yeah, I love it all. But yeah, bourbon can get in there. In fact, one of my favorite songs. There's a girl named Nicole Witt. She wrote a song that was just Florian. It's called Bourbon, but it's like what she misses the most, and it wasn't even all good times. It was about her daddy, but like she misses the bourbon on his breath, like just because when he always was there apparently, and like
yeah.
But so Bourbon on his breath was a really cool song, Yeah, I can rhyme anything pretty much. Bourbon ain't that hard of a rhyme.
Well, we've got. I sent you some really.
Yeah.
I sent you quite a hodgepodge of bourbons and whiskeys.
One of these kind of scared me.
Arguably one of the greatest bourbon ever made is in this lineup.
Uh-oh.
But one of the I wanted you to talk a little bit about your whiskey before we jump into this. How did you come to be a whiskey owner?
Well, I partnered with and really the biggest part is I partnered with some really just, we call them like, yeah, he's one of us. When you meet somebody, and even especially in business, actually, I base a lot of decisions on like who I'm working with and kind of, if we're the kind of the same, and it's cut from the same cloth, because the values and the things that we really care about, that's what really mattered. And so when I met these guys that had started American Born, they had a great track record with what they were doing, but they just were, to be, for lack of better words, but to be without any worries financially, these guys were just down to earth and cared about like the little things, they cared about. So like the whiskey's good. Okay. It's a simple, good whiskey, but they have an apple version and they have a peach version. And one of the things I loved about them is they were like, well, we decided we weren't going to go put like, peach flavoring in our whiskey, and we weren't going to go. So they went and they found places and they found some people, and so when they put apple in the whiskey, it's real apples. And so it really came out great. And so those are kind of my favorite parts of the bourbon. There's three, and there's the regular, just the whiskey, and then there's the flavored ones. But the flavored ones are so cool. You just put them on the rocks, and it's almost girly, but it ain't, because it's got just that hint, but it's real though. And it don't taste like this. So I just love their values. And so my brand was family, and just be good people, and relaxing, and being good to folks, and that's kind of who we were.
It's always difficult for me to let someone talk positively about a flavored whiskey.
I understand that.
But I'm gonna give you a pass. Here's
the thing. American Born is not like it's not supposed to be your top of the shelf on its own, expensive thing. So for them to have a little something extra and a little couple options, but at least they did that right. You know what I mean? And so, we wanted just average Joe to be able to go pick up a bottle and it still be a good drink, but also their girlfriend could drink one more. But I like I said, the apple is one of my favorites. It's good.
All right, I'll have to taste it. I will. I've started letting loose the ascot a little bit, if you will, and and it tasted some different things here and there, but I'm breaking a lot of rules here lately. The pandemic has kind of changed my perspective on things.
Well, I want to hear about these. So I got 5. Now, are these bourbons? Are these whiskeys?
So first of all, like the term, bourbon is a whiskey. Whiskey is basically a categorical term that means distilled, grain, aged in wood. There's a lot of things that go to it. And I'll send you a book. But there's a lot of different styles of whiskey. And bourbon just means it has to be at least 51% corn and aged new charter. There's a lot of things that go with it.
Right.
But technically, you could call Jack Daniel's a bourbon if they wanted to.
Right.
But marketing-wise, they've chose to stay with Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah,
it's worked for them. You can't blame it. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the Sweetens Cove. This is actually
all right.
Yeah. So this is Peyton Manning's whiskey.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I've been wondering about this actually. I got to know him. It was the oddest story when I met him. Cheers. Here we go.
Cheers. Yes. I'm down to my last drops on this.
I'm about to say, this ain't coming out. Is there? I need to take that little top off of it.
Uh-oh. You got topped.
Well, I got.
So you probably know Drew Holcomb. You know Drew Holcomb?
Why do I know that name?
He's a singer. He's a country singer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he's a part of this. He and Andy Roddick. And the blender on it was Marianne Eaves, who's first woman master distiller in Kentucky history. And she basically got some 13-year-old barrels from Tennessee And this is what she made.
And this is called Sweetens Cove.
Sweetens Cove. It's named after that golf course. That's
Is it down there around where are they located out of?
it's in Tennessee. Let me think.
But it's eastern Tennessee over there, right? Like we're kind of like Peyton and stuff, like with Knoxville.
I think so. I don't know the area well at all, but I know that's a golf course.
Woo! That's got some. It's bright.
Tell me about your process. Like, how do you, like, I'm noticing you seem to have, like, you have your own tasting process. I love this. Tell me about it.
I mean, I'm a little kind of rough around the edges, redneck, but like I learned over the years, I mean, one of the biggest stories I could probably tell you is I was at a place called Blackberry Farms, actually over in Eastern.
Oh, yeah.
And they had brought out, and we were there doing some stuff, and they got, you know, everything. They got about three like world-class sommeliers there for wine and things. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know what it was, but they just kept pouring me this. I'm talking glasses and glasses and glasses of Pappy Van Winkle. And I was like, this is awesome. Tastes like butter. And I just bring me another one. And I didn't know at the time. And so, but after that, I kind of learned that this is, 15 years ago. I started to really realize what I had that night, so I started to enjoy whiskeys a little more and bourbons. I went to Scotland and I did a lot of Scotch over there. A different one for every bar, headed all the way up to the castle, and the peatiness of it and all that stuff. So like the smell and letting it open up a second, it's always like a starter for me. This one's calming down a little bit now.
Yeah, I was pretty aggressive on my approach as well. It came in hot on the nose.
But that's all right, though. I'm about ready to take a sip of it.
Let's do it.
All right. It's weird. I think people do different things with their mouth when they put the whiskey in.
Yeah.
It's like I kind of leave it on the front of my tongue and let it bubble around my teeth for a second before I let it roll back. Just to test it and make sure I can get it back. It's like, that's beautiful. That's awesome. It's warm.
It's good whiskey.
This is a really good whiskey.
So this is distilled in Tennessee. Essentially, they can't disclose this because of NDAs and so forth that they sign, but this comes from a distillery called George Dickel, which is, in Tullahoma.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of whiskey out on the source market.
Oh, yeah.
Really quite good.
I'll drink a lot of George Dickel coming up.
You had a little bit here and there.
When I first came to Nashville, we were digging into some George Dickel, whatever we could get into. It was good.
So on that Pappy story, did the possum drink Dickel?
I think he was a sponsor or the face of it for a long time. I'm almost positive that George Jones was a Dickel guy. Or no, it might have been Merle. It's one of the two. You can mark my words.
All right, we're going to do some Googling here, Lee.
Yeah, you did. It might have been Merle.
Merle Haggard.
It was
George Dickel. Let's see what we have here.
It might have been Merle Haggard.
Yep, it was Merle Haggard, 1986. He's got the face, the whole wrinkled face.
Oh yeah.
A little Dickel glass right next to him right here.
Yeah, I know that picture.
And he says, quote, "Waters for teardrops, Dickels for drinking."
Hey.
Hey, Merle Haggard can do whatever he wants.
He can. Hey, well, he's a poet too. He's a poet.
Is that all right, so? I guess that's a good place to ask. Like, who were like some of like the country greats who inspired you?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. Kind of depends on the area you're looking at. You know, there's so many different kind of. I almost call them. It's like they call it the class of like the '90s class is when that was when there was Garth Brooks and Vince Gill and Tim McGraw and all the Reba McEntire. That was like this '90s class. So then there's this '80s class and there's the '70s, and so but the older stuff, you know, that my daddy would listen to was, you know, Waylon and Willie and Merle and Hank Jr. I got, you know, but he's a little younger than them. And then I fell in love with Don Williams. You know, you're talking about whiskey or bourbon, whatever's smooth. When you're talking about music, it don't get no smoother than Don Williams. You could just go put his record, any record of his on, and just start driving it and just hit play, and it's gonna, it's just butter. And so
for you, that's the Pappy Van Winkle of country.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ones, but I mean, I guess my first real experience with a really good bourbon, you know, was Pappy's, I guess, and I didn't even know it. Now I did do a taste test one time in Vegas with a guy because you can't find Pappy anywhere, right? You can't find it,
right?
And he goes, I got 5 different years in my bar right here, and we were in Vegas. I go, you're well, no, you don't. He goes, let's go. So we sat there and we had like the 10, the 13, the 15, the 19, the 23, and I was like, you know what? And all of them, so they're all great, but I think the 19 was the best. But I got some friends of mine got me some 2 bottles at the same year, so I know they came off the same pallet because there wasn't but so many sold. And they weren't even Pappy Van Winkle. They were just the Van Winkle. They were just the
the 10-year-old or 12.
12, yeah, the 12.
12.
And it was still butter to me. I mean, it still is. So, you know, that was just my first kind of like real experience with like really good.
Well, I'll let them know. I know the Van Winkles are a fan of yours, so we actually I'm friends with them, and I helped put on some country festival out here in Kentucky. It got canceled this year. It's called Hometown Rising. Last year, Tim McGraw actually headlined it with Keith Urban, and I remember talking to those guys about like, all right, who would you like to see his book? And they said Lee Brice.
Really?
So, yeah.
That just made my day. That's like I got a #1 song on the radio today, and I got you telling me about them liking me. That's cool.
Well, it was the sisters, the Van Winkle sisters, which they're triplets. So for, you know, there's a lot of interesting. They're characters, but
awesome.
I'll let them know that. I'll see if that can help me dig up a special bottle to send you.
That's awesome. So that was beautiful, by the way.
It really was. And so now we're here. We are. We just had I believe this is a $300 whiskey, Sweetens Cove, and we were talking about the most expensive whiskey in the world. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you to very Old Barton, $12.
There you go. But see, look, you can't hold a good man down. You know what I mean?
Well, and also, like, look, you can spend a lot of money in whiskey. You can. My bank account is proof of this. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to get the good stuff. And this is, to me, is a great, great value pour. You can't really find it in many places outside of Tennessee and Kentucky.
Oh, really?
But very Old Barton. Here, I'll give you
Very Old Barton. I love that it's just very Old Barton.
Yeah.
How old is it? It's 6 years old. Okay.
6 years old.
Yeah, that's. You're right. It's very good. It's very good. In fact, blind taste test. I mean, it's got a little extra edge going down, but with somebody who didn't know a whole lot, you wouldn't tell a huge difference in that if you didn't know.
That's right.
Because that is really good.
Yeah.
And if you do it right, people. I mean, I used to just chug bottles of Jack Daniels, and that's just not how you put them with Cokes and all that stuff. And
Yeah, were you doing this backstage before you get on and perform?
Oh, yeah.
Or?
Well, before that, even like when I first got in, the first time I ever drank ever in my whole life.
At 21, everybody, Lee
Yeah.
waited till he was 21 years old to start consuming alcohol.
At 21, I was in college at Clemson still. It's a 5-year program, and my buddy and I had never drank, and my buddy brought a bottle of Jack Daniels and a bottle of vodka. I'm not sure what he brought. And he said, "All right, we're going to drink tonight, and you're going to see what it feels like." Well, I was howling at the moon. I was just chasing it down I had a 2-liter of Coke and a liter of Jack. That's, I'm walking around Clemson just howling at the moon. But I've come a long way from there. I mean, I'm 20 years older, I guess now. I guess you learn a little bit in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about sipping, and we say drink responsibly, but no one really defines what that is. And I think, really, don't drink yourself to death. Don't drive after drinking. I mean, there's a lot of aspects there, but I believe that if you just taste and you sip and you try to enjoy what you're tasting, I believe that cuts out a lot of the issues.
It actually does. I learned a while back when I was on the road and I was out there doing a whole lot of let's do a shot of this or a shot of that and da da da. It's like you end up drinking so much because there's a whole shot in that little quick moment,
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had to, after a while of that, I was like, man, this don't feel good. So I learned to go, I'll have a drink instead of a shot. Who wants to go? It is kind of cool to watch a Western and watch them just sitting there shooting a shot of whiskey and slamming it down. But who knows what that was, if that back then.
Yeah, it's like tea or like the Van Winkle bottles that they would send to Justified. They were actually tea, so they would put tea in like used Van Winkle bottles.
Justified. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wasn't that a great series?
Great. That was awesome.
Yeah. I wish it didn't end. So let's go to the Old Potrero.
All right.
Single malt straight rye whiskey. Now this is distilled and aged in California.
Okay. Straight rye whiskey.
So it's a single malt straight rye. So basically what that means is they malted the rye. And so it's, the American system is not really up to date with like what we call single malts. It's not traditionally an American whiskey.
No.
So it's like kind of catching up, and it's still not fully defined in the federal code. But this is from Anchor Distilling in California.
That doesn't have a whole lot of that don't burn your nose when you smell it.
It smells like really, it smells like a lot of rye bread and vitamins to me.
Yeah, vitamins. It's almost like there's some flowers in it or something.
Yeah.
Like
some floral notes.
It might be. It's California. There's some fruit. There's a lot of that floral stuff.
I mean, he might have dropped he might have dropped a little something in there when it's fermenting.
Put a little daisy in there, well.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That's funky.
It is funky. You could taste it's funky in a good way, but it's so smooth. Like that was extremely smooth. Smooth.
Flavor wise, it's very different than what we've been tasting.
Yeah, very. I mean,
It doesn't kill your palate though.
no.
Your palate's good. Okay.
I mean, it's a little. Yeah. I mean, there's something in there. It's like cinnamon or something.
I get some tobacco in there. Do you smoke cigars?
I do. So it's like that, but which I like to smoke a cigar. I don't like the taste the next day, but while it's going down, I love. So I'm saying it, kind of like you dipped yeah. Maybe it's the ashes. I'm talking cinnamon. You're talking about ashes. I don't know.
My head's already into the. He's smoking a joint and it falls into the fermentation tank, and it just went there.
All right. Well, that's cool. San Francisco, single malt. So this is single malt, like they talk about single malt Scotch whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. So in Scotland they're using barley, but here they use rye.
So they're doing a process just with a different.
Yeah. So they're basically malting. They're malting rye. And I don't recall if they're using a malted barley in this as well, but I doubt it.
The word malt feels just like that. Like when I got a true, like I went to an old, say, like creamery or something, like a true like malt. Do you want malt in your shake?
Mm-hmm.
There was like this fermenting. There's this extra kind of like you said, I don't know another word. There's got to be another word than funky. There's like this, but that's kind of what that is. It's got the malt, and it's like
what you're describing is fermentation. Like if you've been to distilleries.
Yeah.
So there's a smell next to the fermentation tank, and it could be that.
I mean, it kind of is. It kind of feels like that. Well,
so now let's go to the Smoke Wagon.
All right. So I've been staring at this. So Smoke Wagon, it's like I was talking about, Scotch, and I learned about peat, like peatiness and all that stuff when I started drinking. When I started drinking Scotch, and then I really learned about it when I went over and started to Scotland and drank like a bunch of different scotches, and the peat, is kind of like it comes up out of your nose like a smoke. And so when I see this word smoke, I wonder if that's what it is.
The irony is that that's just what this guy calls it, but it's just straight bourbon.
Okay.
And this is a 12-year-old Indiana bourbon that is bottled by a guy in Nevada. He's always wearing a cowboy hat, and he has these cut off jean shirts, and he's like rolling the barrel and talking. He's like one of the great new characters in the American whiskey scene. So
well, there you go. I mean, I love that. It feels God, I can hardly smell it. To be called Smoke Wagon.
Yeah, well, see, your mind's thinking it's got to smell like smoke, and it's not. It's coming in, a little bourbony.
It's coming in. It's cool, not hot.
And this is 111 proof.
I'm about to say, yeah, this one's on up there. But here we go. Now that, woo! It does not taste like it smells.
No.
That one's got all kind of like warmth and pepper and, spice, heat. I guess maybe that's why it's called Smoke Wagon. It's got heat. It don't smell like it, but it's got heat.
Do you get a little bit of Do you get a little bit of sweetness on this at all, or is it just the the spice?
It's sweet, and it's like goes that kind of like behind my ears, behind my eyes, like. So it does have that. It does what peat does, but it don't taste like or smell like peat. It's like comes up through my nose, and it's kind of back here, and it is sweet. You're right. I don't know what kind of sweet though. I mean, it's definitely a tangy sweet. Like
It's like fruit sweet to me, like baked pie, like a fruit sweetness.
Like a banana, not banana, but like vanilla pudding or something.
That sounds delicious. That sounds delicious. I go for a bowl of banana or a vanilla pudding right now. Of course, I don't need it. I don't know about you, but I've been putting on weight during this pandemic.
Oh, you ain't kidding. I've been working twice as hard, making no money, and getting fat.
That's the truth. And and it's like I tell myself, it's okay. I can have another bourbon. Because it's the pandemic. This is helping me through it.
That's right.
And then the next day you're like, hold on, that roll wasn't there last week. What is this thing?
What is this?
What is
I
this?
Can't see my toes.
Yeah, that's the first thing we're all looking for when our belly's getting over it.
Well, I like that actually. That's good.
It's good. So now
111 proof. That's good. At the end of the day, that's going to be good anyway.
There's a note I get in there. It's a little bit of an earthy note, almost like chewing on a stick or like
piece of bark or something. Yes.
Yeah.
If you close your mouth and breathe out your nose.
That's
Yeah. Like the barrel, like the oak, like a nut. It's good.
So, this is when I was talking to your team about you coming on, and
now you were saying.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, when I was booking you, I was like, what's the right whiskey that I could get for someone I'm such a huge fan of, and I mean that, like what I said at the top of the show, I love your music, and so I've got, I'm looking at like what can I send Lee Brice, because I'm such a fan. I want to make sure that I want to hit it. I want to give you like a home run.
Come on.
So I went deep into the well of my collection and pulled out what is arguably thought to be the greatest bourbon ever made.
Come on.
My friend Chuck Cowdery, Bourbon Hall of Famer, says it's without a doubt his number one all-time bourbon. Now, here's the story of it. It was distilled in Pennsylvania at a distillery called Michter's and brought down to Kentucky and bottled, 16 years after distillation. It was distilled in 1974. And this is, the last time I saw this bottle in auction, I think it went for $15,000 or somewhere around there. I mean, these bottles don't come up very often. And
open this up for me now. I got one. I'm holding the phone with one hand. I got to be very careful.
It's
multi-talented man here.
And we're, this whole, yeah. Now you got to take the little top off. Get my key and pop that little top off. Be very careful. Do not spill it.
It's like, do not spill this bourbon.
Okay. All right. So you're telling me You got this special here for me.
I did.
Boy, it sure smells good.
Man,
It
it's
sure.
complicated.
Well, I'm gonna take.
It smells amazing.
It does smell amazing. Cheers.
Cheers to that.
All right, I'm going in. Wow. Wow. That's got some flowery stuff in it too. That's got some bright, but like not too bright. It's got color, but it's like, you know, watercolor is perfect. You know, it's like, but it's got some bones to it too. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's bold still. Wow.
This is one where, you know, as I'm sipping on this and looking across to you in the virtual world, I'm thinking to myself, this sucks. This is meant to be sipped by, you know, we're meant to be by a campfire or sitting down in a nice nice bar, leatherback chairs at, you know, Blackberry Farms or wherever.
Well, you know what? I am in a leatherback chair sitting in a bar. At least we could say that.
At least we could
Now,
say that.
You do have headphones on, but other than that, we're pretty close. Now, this is amazing. And I appreciate you bringing this into my life today. This is something I will not forget.
Now, question here is, since you are a grizzled whiskey drinker and you know your stuff, where does this sit in the rankings for you? And if you want to answer this at another time, you want to spend more time with it, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a little complicated. Like there's a lot going on, but it's great, obviously. Wonderful. I mean, my palate has been it's been a little sheltered with a couple of that I really love, and that are kind of more like, I think they're a little more buttery and like kind of just, but there's a little factor of that sometimes isn't. This is like pure. This is pure whiskey, bourbon, whatever it is you want to call it. That their age process and whatever they did put it in just the right spot. I mean, it's got a little smoky to it because I keep smelling it come out of my nose, which I love. Not too hot. I don't like, it's like a cigar. I don't like to smoke a cigar that's too hot. I like to smoke a mild cigar, because for me, I don't smoke like cigarettes. And so when I smoke a cigar, you know, it's too much for me to try to smoke some big, hefty, spicy. And so this has boldness to it, but boy, it's smooth.
It's got
this one. It's fruity too. There's something in there that's like bright, and like it's sweet. I don't know. It's deep in there, but it's really good. There's a lot in there. Do they talk about what all's in there?
So, first of all, this is the only bottle I've ever owned of this one. I've tasted it elsewhere, but these don't get opened very often. And every single time I taste it, I get like, these are the notes that really come out for me. Apricot, dried apricot, and like the kind of like chewy kind, peach and dried, and the, you know, natural kind, and then the chewy like peach pie, peach cobbler. I get a smorgasbord of caramel, and then I get like I get like beautiful like campfire smoke, like the kind of smoke, not like peat, but like you would get by making a s'mores, where you're putting that over the campfire, and a little bit of that smoke is kind of melted in there with the marshmallow and the chocolate and the graham cracker.
Yeah,
To me, that's what this is.
You definitely have the buttery part of it, but you also have that like you said, that peach, that fruit, that sweet that's in there. Wow. Well, I won't be letting the rest of this go to waste. And you're telling me you sent me a little bit of this out of your bottle?
I did. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Man, that means the world. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, it means the world that you came on and like we get to talk a little whiskey. And I've had a lot of, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of great guests. Last week we had Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates on there. Oh. And everybody has like their own flavor that they kind of, bring to the show. And Daryl Hall has like an amazing palate. He has an amazing palate. And we're just talking about like how he perceives things. And what I'm finding, what this show is kind of evolving into, is that I'm seeing it like I'm just naturally having conversations with people about their processes. At the beginning, it was me talking about my processes and how to taste whiskey and all that. But I'm really kind of trying to push it down the road of what you're tasting, how you get it, and, talk a little bit about music here in between. And when I had the opportunity, to sit down with you, for me, it was like perfect because we have some mutual friends. I know you're a whiskey head and you own a whiskey brand. So perfect combo for me. So of course I'm going to break out the very, very best for Lee Brice.
You sure did. And actually, there's some really special stuff you brought. The other stuff's really, really good too. This is definitely a level above. I can tell you that for sure. Like you're right. I might need some more time to live with it just to give you more info.
Yeah, and I would say do that. You have a little bit more in the bottle?
Dude, absolutely. I got.
So open that up. Keep it in a nice, cool, dark, cool place. Not
right.
Too cool, but like room temperature.
Yeah.
And then approach it later tonight. And then write up some tasting notes for me and send them over my way.
All right.
And on my closeout for this show, I'll read those.
All right, I can do that. This is so you think leave it open?
Yeah, leave it open, let it breathe a little bit, and then I bet you it'll taste,
different.
Quite a bit different.
Man, that was beautiful, and this was awesome. And if you run out of anybody else to come on the show at some point, you just invite me back. I'd love to come back.
Well, absolutely. Now I can't always promise I'm going to be able to top the Hirsch, but
no.
I do have some bottles that might top it.
This was special. We can just go through. Look, there's a lot of whiskeys out there that need to be tasted. So
that is true. We do need some tasting to do. Now, so how did if you're ranking the rest of them, who's number 2, who's number 3, number 4, number 5?
Okay. I'd have to go back in memory, but I got to say, that Sweetens Cove was really good to me. Mm-hmm. But, it was the first one I tasted. It's hard for me to answer these questions because now I got them all a little bit in my head. I like the Smoke Wagon. Of course, I like them all, but, there's a piece of me that kind of came from roots of, I couldn't afford nothing more than a little pint of some, just Jim Beam or just a few different, George Dickel or anything that like I could get for like $5 and then I could go into the bar and not have to drink because I didn't have the money to do it. So I got this palate for that stuff.
So very Old Barton has a nice, feels good to you then.
Good to me. Like it was really good. And I'm not putting it on the level of like this or the Sweetens Cove, but in a way I am because I because it, especially for what you said it costs, you know, I think that's something that's really, I think that's important. I think it's cool. I'm going to have to, when I get off of here with you, I'll probably go back through like one more little nip of each one and get.
All right. We can do that. So appreciate you coming on. Tell us what's next. What's going on? What's next? What's coming up?
Man, I've got the #1 song in the country right now. And it's like, that just don't
No
happen.
surprise, by the way. Congratulations.
Well, I got fortunate. Thank you. I got fortunate. I'm on a duet with a girl, Carly Pierce, and she wrote a great song, and it went #1 today. I've got a record that I just put out my first single, and it's flying up the charts, which, you know, there's a little bittersweetness going on because here I got a #1 and I got a song that just broke through the top 30 really fast, and I'm not able to be out on the road playing music, you know, and hearing the fans sing it. So that's a little bittersweet. But I'm finishing this whole record up over the next week and a half. In fact, I'm going, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to go finish out some mixes on a couple of songs. And then, man, I'm just going to, you know, dive back in and start making the next record because it takes me about 1.5 years to get a record done because I write, produce it, and I play on it, and I sing it all. And you know, that's just what I do. That's my process. It's kind of like this. It just takes a lot longer.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's only great things ahead for you. You are country music right now. You're like really pushing the envelope, and you're in that list of like what people would consider the greatest country music star right now. And I do believe that. I think you're on that list. I do.
Man, that means a lot to me. And I cannot wait to do this again. Talk to you soon. And again, thank you for all of this. Thank you for this special little nugget here today. That's beautiful. Let's get back together. All right.
I'd like that. Let's hope it's on let's hope it's at a venue some point, and we can have some fun.
Right.
Cheers,
right,
man.
Talk to you soon. Cheers.
All right.
Yes,
be safe out there.